who brought the bride to Adam. And Adam beheld her and saw that, oh, it couldn't have been better than this. And he adored her and he took her over, appreciating God. He will later say it is the woman to give me. The late Reverend Dr. Samuel Fadeji, the former General Secretary of our Nigerian Baptist Convention, he said, we all know that God performed a mini operation by removing a rib from Adam and making a woman out of that rib. So that will leave Adam incomplete anyway until the rib comes back to him. So when God performed that mini operation, Dr. Fadeji said that God did not take the rib from the man's, he did not take a bone from the man's head, from his skull, so that the man will not be ruling over the woman. After all, you were taken from up here, so I can rule you. He did not do that. And he did not take a bone from the man's feet, so that the man will not make her into football, soccer ball. But guess where he took the rib from? From the side. So that what? Side by side. Hallelujah. Side by side. Side by side. That is where the compatibility comes in. That is where the suitability comes in. So that they can walk side by side, so that the man can cherish her as a companion, so that the man can adore her as a partner, as a co-partner, as an equal partner in the journey of life. And many men turn this upside down because our society has helped us to turn it upside down. Even right there in the time of the Bible, the Hebrew culture that later grew into the Israelite culture, that later grew into the Hellenistic culture, that later grew into the Roman culture, that later grew into the Western culture, they turned things upside down as early as the biblical times, when they started seeing women as instruments of childbearing, and the age became a patriarchal age. No longer the age where they lived and worked together as equal, but the age where the man is actually the boss and the woman is just following. But originally, that is not what God intended. We need to go back to the original purpose of God in creation. The woman is a companion and a counterpart in the journey and labor of life. So, childbearing is not even mentioned here at this point. But we do know that for Adam to replenish the hearts, he cannot do it all alone. Although later society will change the purpose of marriage for companionship, from companionship to childbearing, it is not the primary purpose of God giving him a wife. It is for companionship first and foremost. And perhaps there's a man here this morning that is thinking of maybe a second wife. Is there anybody like that? I hope not. I hope not. That is thinking of a second wife. Be aware that God did not intend it to be so in the beginning. Because if Jesus Christ can make reference to the beginning, that it was not so in the beginning. The law of Moses permitted you, some of you men that are boasting now that you can do this. So the woman dare not do this because you can do this. He said, stop boasting, because originally it was not like that. It was not so. Moses permitted you because of the hardness of your hearts. And what did the law of the jungle say before the time of Moses? The law of the jungle was such that if you did harm to me, for instance, if you injure me in one eye, the law of the jungle, I have to wound you in both eyes. That's the law of the jungle. And everybody knew that. So you don't even attempt to injure somebody in one eye. Because you know that the repercussion is they're going to get both eyes. But when Moses came, Moses said, that law of the jungle is not going to work. Let's do it this way. An eye, he balances it out. But when Jesus came, in the time of Jesus' earthly ministry, Jesus taught the people in the Sermon of the Mount. If somebody slap you on one face, on the next. And if he slaps the second one, and what do you do? Already. So if you are thinking of a second wife, in the beginning, it was not so. We know that our fathers at home, they married several wives. But men are doing that in this modern age, as yet, in Syria polygamy. By throwing one wife away, like return policy. We are living in a world of return policy, right? A money back guarantee. If you if you paid dowry 15 years ago, you know you could easily return that dowry. But it was not so in the beginning. What we are trying to establish is the original purpose of marriage. God gave one wife to Adam, and this is the basis of monogamy, sharing one life together. And like our Sunday school this morning taught us, I pledge to you my faithfulness. Polygamy, including serial polygamy, is an impairment of a balanced view of marriage. As a result of God's design, throughout the book of Genesis, marriage remains strong and enduring. Throughout the book of Genesis. Even though there will later be crises, especially among parents trying to show favoritism to one child or the other. But basically, marriage remains strong throughout the book of Genesis. So what do we learn from God's design of marriage? Number one, I'm going to give us a few points, and then I'm going to go sit down. Man is prior to woman. And I'm coming back to the women now. Man is prior to woman. In this sense, the man is the leader of the team or the partnership. It is not a boss and subordinate relationship. It is a co-equal relationship, but in any team, for that team to work the way it should work, we all know that there will be a leader, right? There will be the team leader, and the man is prior to the woman. So God has made the man the head of that union. And where we have problems in our world today, it is usually because some women, I'm not saying all women, some women in the feminist liberation movement, some women who have embraced feminism as a philosophy of life, they are demanding equality with men. The role of the place of the woman is no longer in the kitchen. Agreed. We have agreed that. But where we begin to struggle for leadership in the home, then we begin to create a crack in the wall. We begin gradually to create a crack in the world. And that is where the song of our youth choir again comes in, that we need to shut the door. We need to shut the door. We should not let that happen in our own home. In the academic world, this is referred to as a complementarian, egalitarian debate. And I tell you, libraries of books have been written just on that debate. Is the woman complementary to the man, or is the woman equal to the man in terms of headship? The man is not the head, we are both head. Or either we are both head or nobody is head. So that debate has generated libraries. But what we are saying at this point is that respect cannot be demanded or enforced. Even for the man to demand or enforce false respect from the wife, it's not going to work. Respect must be mutual. It must be reciprocal in marriage. A wife must honor her husband to the point of submission. Because the Bible commands, it says, wife, do what? Submit. It is in that spirit of submission. And the submission is, it is assuming a lot of things from the man. It is assuming a man who has his head on his shoulder, right? Amen. And I hope women, we are like that. I hope we are up and doing. I hope we are up to the task. I hope we know our role. I hope we know our responsibility in the home. And that is the context in which Paul is telling the woman to submit to the leadership of the man. A husband must love his wife in a language that she understands. And many of us, men, we are guilty of this. We claim we love, and we end it there. But it has to be in a language that she understands. The men's fellowship, the Father's group in this church, I just completed the study of the 5 love languages. Any man can remind us of those 5 love languages? Challenging the men of ABC. We spent like 6 or 8 months studying the book. Acts of service. Acts of service. Affirmation, words of affirmation. Physical touch. Some people are still fresh, more fresh. Okay, I refer us to that book by Gary Chapman, The 5 Love Languages. So you must speak the language of love to your wife in a language that she can understand and relate to. One man said, I told you that I love you, and if I stop loving you, I will let you know. No. You won't let her know. Just continue to affirm it. Continue to affirm her. Continue to continuously reassure her of that love. He must provide for her and cater to her needs. If you fight with a woman in the home, if a woman is not seeing love, life is going to be difficult for you. I've tried it before. Life, a confession time, that's right. Life is going to be miserable for you. So you better agree with the woman in the home. You know, the story is told of a soldier whose his platoon will be doing a parade that afternoon. And this guy, he was having quarrel with his wife in the home. They are not talking. This one comes to the parlor. This one will get up and go to the room. And then this guy had a parade. He's a military guy. So he goes to the woman's room and puts a note that, please, when it's 3 o'clock, wake me up. And the woman saw the note. Oh, very good. Very, very good. And she took her own pen too. I went to his room and wrote, it's 3 o'clock. Please, wake up. And the man woke up at 5 o'clock. So you can see that life will be miserable for you, except you agree with her in the home. So what are we saying? What are we saying? The sexual roles in marriage are complementary. Like the Bible says that God created a helper as opposite him. That's contrasting him. Not the same sex. In our world today, what are we saying? There are states that have legislated same-sex marriage, and it's almost looking like it's a doom. It's like a lost battle on many forums. But originally, it was not so. It was not so. It's like a misnomer, and this is strange to biblical design. Number 3, marriage is an exclusive relationship. No family interference. We did not see family interference in Genesis. My parents, my father, my brother, my uncle, my sister, all those ones should stay away. Please, stay away. Let them form a bond. They need to form a bond. Many of us pride the fact that in God's mathematics, 1 plus 1 is 1. 1 plus 1 is 1. Yes, it is 1 positionally. That is, on the day they get wedded, they are 1. But it is also true that 1 plus 1 is 1 on a continuous basis. They have to form a bond. It will take time. So when families begin to come in and go out and come in and go out, we may be disturbing that bond from forming. May the Lord help us. Number 4, it is a permanent union. It talks about cleaving, that a man shall live. Therefore, a man shall live and cleave. A man shall leave his father's, his parents' home, symbolically saying that he's not going to be taking orders from his parents to rule his home, to guide his home. He's going to leave all those ones behind and man up and be a man. If he's not a man, that means he's not ready for marriage. It is a permanent union. He has to cleave. Number 5, it is a bond sealed by God, one flesh. In other words, God must be first in your lives and in your relationship. The mutual agreement between Adam and Eve was so strong because the Bible does not tell us that at any point they disagreed. The mutual agreement was so strong. Do you know why it was so strong? Because God was at the center of that relationship. God was at the center, supervising and superintending the relationship at the same time. God was at the center. God was actually the one that performed the wedding, that joined them. So the mutual agreement was strong. If you want the mutual agreement between you and your wife to be strong, you got to put God at the center. Even though in their own case, it came out in a negative way too. Because they did not agree against themselves again. Guess who they agreed against? They agreed against God to disobey God's rule. And that's the negative part. And that is what led to the imperfection that we are now experiencing. Now, without God, love will become imperfect. Without God, the marriage relationship will become subpersonal. Subpersonal in the sense that God introduces in Genesis chapter 3, verse 16, that unto your husband shall your heart, your heart will, your desire shall be to your husband. And that the man will now begin to rule over you. And that is why you find in our world today, all sorts of things are going on. That is because of the imperfection that came as a result of the fall. Number 6, and I got 2 more. There should be perfect ease or concord in the relationship. In other words, verse 25 of that Genesis chapter 2 tells us that the two of them, they were together and they were naked and they were not ashamed. The reason they were not ashamed is because there is perfect ease between them. There is perfect concord, harmony between the two of them. They were both naked, they became themselves. In marriage, you have to learn to let down your guard. Many of us, we put on our guards when we are dating. When we are dating, you are the best man, you are the best guy, you are the best woman. But in marriage, you have to learn to let down your guard and be who you are, who you truly are. That is the way that we now begin to form the necessary bond. Be yourselves, no pretense to be who you are not. Yorùbá say okuki fi ara pamọ́. Number 7, the woman is the weaker sex. the man must regard the woman as the weaker sex, and it is only in the sense that he needs to be tender with her. We need to be more patient with our wives than we are most of the time. We need to be more careful. We need to be softer. Some of us, we are so manly that we many times undermine the needs of our wives. As the weaker sex, we need to compliment her. We need to be there for the woman. This reminds me, the weaker sex can also mean that women were the ones that were first tempted, and women are more easily tempted than women. Do we women agree with that? Women succumb more easily to to situations that men do. I remember when I first got married, within the first year of my marriage, I coordinated the student ministries, and students, were coming to our house very often for sleepovers. When they are traveling, they come. Our house is like a stopover. So we receive a lot of visitors, a lot of students, and our ministry staff too, they come. So one of these, my students from Ogbomoso, came and spent a night with us. And in the morning, she spoke quietly to my wife that she needs 1,000 naira. You know, 1,000 naira many years ago is big money. That she wanted to register for an exam, blah, blah, blah. But she shouldn't tell me, because if she tells pastor, she knows that pastor will give her the money, will not take it back. So she used that to scope my wife. Scope. And my wife listened to her and gave her the 1,000, and this girl left. So after some time, I don't know what we were discussing, then she brought up the issue that I said, I hope you didn't give it to her. Because I know that that's it. And that was the last time we saw her in our home, And so the women are the weaker sex. We need to learn to be more open to one another in marriage. And finally, what we have today is at best a casualty of the fall and a caricature of the original plan of God. So our marriages are not perfect. We need to do our best to make things work. Yorùbá again say agbára òjò kò lóhùn onílé wó, onílé ni ò ní gbà fún. We are living in an imperfect world. Our world is no longer perfect. God created it perfect, but the fall, our own choice of disobedience, rendered everything imperfect. So what we have now is a caricature of what God created, and we got to work it out, work it out, work it out. There will be storms along the way. It will look like it's going to sink. It will look like it's actually sinking. But let us rest assured on the everlasting love of God that will never be shaken. God bless you.
Praise God. Oh, perfect love, all